in my house for 5 years, and neither of us have an eye for like any of it. And finally we had put some things on the wall just around Thanksgiving because we were having people over, and I was like, our house is so sterile, it could be anybody's home. But yeah, my husband did all of the
it looks great.
Mine would be very disorganized.
I feel like literally every time I'm on a Zoom call, I'm always like, I should fix that because it's really bad. But then I don't know. There's just gonna be holes all over the wall behind those pictures. So it's like Instagram versus reality, This is my life. Anyway, I'll just try to move my head so you guys can't see it.
It's very normal to hang things crooked. Very normal. Don't worry. Cool. Good to see everybody. The weekend is fast approaching. I'm very excited about that. I'm sure many of you are too. We've got some great questions this week and kind of just going to, try to knock some of these things out. I feel like it's been a while since we did a bunch of just not necessarily random, but a collection of different.
A grab bag.
Yeah, a grab bag.
A club mix of questions.
Yes.
A Gardetto's bag. And it's all rye chips, baby.
Yeah, we've got a few questions about the menstrual cycle and running, and maybe we'll start right there.
Let's just get right into the cycle.
We'll try to group these together so that they make sense for listeners. All right. Yeah, let's do this. Okay. The first question is statement. In terms of menstrual cycle, are there different types of workouts that are more beneficial during certain phases, or is it best to just be consistent throughout the cycle? The author of this question has apparently heard arguments for both, but would love to hear about this from a running specific perspective. Zoe, you want to take a crack at this?
Yeah, I love this because I think just a couple general principles is that it can be really beneficial for athletes to be tapped into and aware of where they're at in their cycle and really attuned to how their body is feeling during different phases of their cycle. Logging that either, this is a hotly debated topic, but logging that in a way that feels good to you, I think can be really, really useful. Sorry, frog in my throat. You don't need to log it in any sort of data sharing way. That could be something that could be helpful to keep track of in your training log or just in a paper journal, depending on what your comfort level with that kind of thing is. But I think that the overarching principle is it is a thing to be aware of and to embrace in your life and training. However, most of the studies that are currently available, which just to be super clear, there aren't a ton. I know that I say this every time we talk about, female and women identifying athletes, but we need more research done by, for, and on female athletes generally. Most of the available science shows that the benefits are negligible depending on the athlete and goals. More research is needed, but my best advice is super generalized, and that's to not run if you feel awful and to be okay running on a day where you maybe don't feel that great. You've got some low grade symptoms of bloat, fatigue, some cramping. Maybe that's a day where you switch your workout to a different day so that you're able to execute on your workout to the best of your ability and not, try to push intervals when you just feel not great. But sometimes practicing running when you don't feel 100% can be really beneficial as well. Because if you're training for a marathon, 100-miler, 5K, you don't get to decide at what point in your cycle that race is going to fall during. We don't all plan our calendars around our race calendars around our menstrual cycle. Life is already enough of a Tetris board without trying to get those two gorgeous, mysterious pieces aligned. And just again, the science shows that a lot of the benefits are super negligible. I think it's kind of a trendy thing to see in science, and in some ways it's just, again, indicates that more research is needed. in my assessment of the best evidence available, ultra-specific cycle sync training isn't the path of most benefit for most runners.
And I don't think we even see that with elite females.
No. Yeah.
Yeah, so far.
I mean,
as
even
read.
women trying to break the American record, that's not there, like in the marathon, half marathon. So, again, female identifying athletes who are at the pinnacle of our sport, that's not their approach currently.
Yeah.
And I think that, again, like you don't want to just be like, oh, this is what the elites are doing, so I'm going to do that. But like, just because you're seeing something validated in a small number of surveys doesn't mean that there's going to be like, even like clinically statistical benefits,
Yeah, totally. Kristen, I would love it if you could chime in a little bit on this. You mentioned some important notes here about race schedule and things like that. And so I would just love to hear you kind of talk a little bit more about that as well.
Yeah, I agree with Zoe. I think that there definitely needs to be more research done. But I think that like it's always so dependent on the athlete, right? And like there are some months when I'm cycling where I feel great and I have some of my best runs. And then there are other months where I literally like cannot get off the couch because everything hurts so bad. And that's kind of when I switch things around. But I think that that's a really cool opportunity for the athlete to really like listen to how their body's feeling. What is your body telling you? What does it need? And then do that, take care of yourself and like do the most right thing for you. But, to Zoe's point, I think that running through some of that pain is really beneficial. Because one, if you're cycling and you're running a marathon, like you're going to have to deal with that like double whammy of pain anyway. So kind of getting used to that and like mentally preparing yourself for the pain as well as physically preparing yourself for that kind of, like that feeling is really important, but it depends on the athlete. So
Totally. And in my experience, and this kind of mirrors what I'm hearing from both of you guys, from Zoe and Kristen, is that for athletes who do have a menstrual cycle, it really depends on the month. Some months there are no issues, and some months that there are fatigue, headaches, cramping, things of that nature that might make it uncomfortable to go and do a hard workout, a hard long run, maybe even do a race. And so I don't think that it's fair to operate under any planned, like hard and fast rules in these situations. Like good coaching is going to respond to what the athlete is saying. And then fine tune the plan based on that feedback. And because in my experience, there's very little pattern sometimes to these things. It can be a few months, like you might have an athlete who does sometimes have discomfort during their menstrual cycle, but we don't know which particular month that's going to happen on. So if every month during a specific part of the cycle we plan to do a down week, that athlete would most likely over the course of a year miss out on a lot of beneficial training because we pre-planned in down weeks, when instead good coaching, and we've seen this a lot in recent research
in metadata or in meta studies.
Yeah, and this is so cool. It's like the best down weeks are really the down weeks that kind of come when an athlete is having a life event or having that discomfort, and they're not necessarily pre-planned every 3 or 4 weeks, which is kind of like an older style of looking at cycles of training. And so it's better, and the athlete ends up getting more training and elicits better responses when those down weeks are very specific to the athlete feedback, what's going on in their life, et cetera. And so like, I think we're hearing this kind of unanimously from all the coaches, is that like, that's kind of the way to deal with this. I'm curious, like and I haven't had this in my roster over the last 4+ years, but I've never had an athlete like plan their race schedule around when they, might be in their menstrual cycle.
I've
Have you guys had that?
I've seen an increased interest, and I actually, if there are athletes who menstruate who are really intent on having their race and training planned around their cycle, I actually encourage them to seek out a different coach, because that's not in alignment with just like how I want them to be best served. And that's just like not a good fit for how I operate.
Can you just go in a little deeper? Like why doesn't that fit for you?
Again, we're not seeing it validated in the research yet.
Okay.
And so therefore, like I coach in alignment with the best available research. Like this is actually like a sector of physiology that I am very, very like really try to stay attuned to, but we're just not seeing, like, I think that sometimes a big question that we get from athletes is like, how do you guys stay up on your science? And like, we do read a lot of emergent literature. However, just because something just came out in a study with 12 people does not mean it's ready for prime time. Not on Microcosm coaching. Just because it works for 5 like elite women who are able to nap 2 hours a day and don't have no childcare obligations and no work obligations, that is not the reality of the people I tend to coach. Therefore, we need to be like, oh, this is cool. Let's pay attention to this. But that doesn't mean it's ready for implementation. And a lot of times, even when you see like the head, like I work at a media outlet. This is the space we thrive in. Is a lot of times you'll even see something like, research shows that like syncing your training with your menstrual cycle has positive benefits. And then you look at the actual study and it's like, you're able to run like a second per mile fast. Like it just isn't always like the real world implications aren't always as big as I think promotes implementation.
Yeah,
I don't know if I'm explaining that very well.
You are. I think you are. And I think what the practical, like boots on the ground approach with coaches and the athletes they're actually coaching is, I think we can really safely say we usually see athletes are negatively impacted by some of the side effects of menstruation, and or it's just a normal week of training.
Yeah. And a couple just like other broad principles is like, we're not here to pathologize menstruating. That's a normal part of being a human. And it actually means your body is like super healthy. I love that our bodies give us signs. That's so amazing, especially for some of us who aren't always that great at like reading between the lines. Super clear signals and a bunch of noise. We love that. We're celebrating that. Another thing though, is if you find that the side effects of your menstrual cycle are repeatedly impacting your ability to just engage in life and training, impacting your quality of life, that could be worth talking about with a medical professional and just seeing like if there's a solution that helps, again, like not to pathologize it, like symptoms, normal, menstruating, normal, gorgeous. We love it. But again, like if it's something that if you feel that the side effects are so extreme that you want to tailor your race schedule around, I think to me, and not going to sit right for everyone, because everyone should feel that they have full autonomy over their body and decision-making over their body. That to me would be something that I would bring to my medical professional, because like if I want to race Western states, or I just want to like train when I want to train, I want to ski when I want to ski. Again, like you want to, it's a delicate dance of like listening to your body. But if your body is tugging too far in a way that indicates something might be out of balance or some other need isn't met, that to me indicates that there could be further discussion to be had with a trusted medical professional.
Yeah, I love that plug for our doctors out there in our community and the greater community. They are an invaluable resource that, when things are off, and we tend to intuitively know that as humans, we know our bodies best. It's not really up to your coach to try to wade through the noise to figure out the root cause. It's like, hey, let's get an expert involved here and see what's going on. I wanted to just ask one more question before we kind of go into another deeper question here in the same vein. But if you had an athlete approach you and say, I think I should pick races based on, when I am in my menstrual cycle, or picking a race date specifically to avoid racing while in their menstrual cycle. what would your reaction be to that? Would you default to the athlete and just be like, okay, if that's like how you want to align things, great, I fully support that. That's awesome. Or would you be skeptical about that? Like, what would be your thoughts on that?
I would be really authentically curious around what they're feeling, and like what their goals are, that is driving their decision making. I definitely lead with curiosity. Secondarily, I would want to present actually some of the research and writing I've done as a journalist. I've written specifically about how to race 100 milers when on your period. And like that, I think, is really like its own separate, like those different, like the logistics are slightly different. Your temperature management might be slightly different. It can be done. Lots of menstruating athletes have incredible performances at all phases of their cycle. Again, like I think it really just depends on like where, like, is this person just like not loving the idea of carrying a bunch of tampons around the Hard Rock course? Like, are there tampons available on the Hard Rock course? I mean, I think there are, because Gene Lucrezzi is now on the board, but like those are serious considerations. Like, girl, person, runner, I hear you if you're not psyched to carry tampons for hundreds of miles like that.
Yeah,
I get that. I want to validate like whatever they're bringing to it. But if it's from a performance oriented perspective, I think it can be useful to deconstruct, again, with curiosity and openness where they're coming from on that.
yeah, totally. Because we might be trying to eke out those small percentages that, that might really matter at the highest elite level of the sport. That could be the difference between a win.
Yeah,
and
I mean, it
loss,
makes me
maybe.
think of,
But I think for our team, for our athletes, that might just be a little too nuanced. We might be missing the bigger picture, the more important things to focus
it
on.
makes me think of that Swiss runner during the Olympic marathon in the last Olympic cycle, who she was in third place, and then she was sidelined to the 22nd mile. She was sidelined by a menstrual cramp, and then Molly Seidel was able to surge into third place. Like, that does happen, and like it really sucks to be at a phase in your cycle that sidelines your Olympic marathon dreams. Like, that's real tough. But for a lot of us, that's not quite where we're racing at. And I would say if that's something that happens to you repeatedly, again, or that your nervous happens to you repeatedly, again, it might be helpful to work with a medical professional on different tools for managing pain and discomfort during that time.
Yeah. Coaches, Sarah, I'd love to hear your opinion.
From a mental health perspective, like, I would be concerned about that need for control. And then like what happens when your cycle changes and things that you had planned and like that were bringing you comfort to have planned so specifically, all of a sudden that changes. Now your cycle is 28 days and it was 26 days, and things are happening early. And now you have all this unnecessary anxiety because this thing that you were trying to control, you can't control. And if you start by accepting that you can't control that thing, you can have a healthier relationship with it. I do think you hear people all the time like, oh, my period's going to be here the week of the race, or I'm going to be PMSing right around the race. And it's this like negative thing. And I think if we can just have some sometimes it's here and sometimes it's not, and not make such an effort to control it, we can have an easier time when things change.
Yeah, I love that, Sarah. Thank you. I feel like that is just another, important perspective to have for everybody. I unfortunately, as a coach, I often, hear about these things from maybe a negative perspective in the training logs. And so sometimes, our need as humans to want to control as much as we can, sometimes inhibits our ability to just, embrace the imperfect and be good at showing up, and all of these, I think, bigger percentage. I'm kind of at a loss of words on this, but it affects our ability to get the big percentage points in training and racing that we actually really need to be successful. And I don't want to discredit the discomfort and all of that I absolutely have seen many times in the training logs. but also we don't want to write our stories before we've had a chance to actually get out there and respond and take action. And I think that's really important. Yeah, Kylie, I'm going to turn it over to you for a second because, and maybe Zoe and Kristen as well, because you guys had some notes on this. But for menstruating runners, this athlete was asking for our thoughts on hormonal IUDs and whether or not there's some risk in using them because we might potentially miss signs of red S. Kylie, you want to maybe tune us in on this a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not in any way like an expert on this, so I want to kind of preface by saying that. And I think
none of us are OBGYNs.
Yeah, exactly. And usually with this kind of question, I get it sometimes from athletes. I will have them just like go see their OBGYN because it's a little bit out of my scope. I think the concern is valid. There's not really a good answer in regards to, like how to best, I guess, know if you could potentially have red S if you already are on birth control, without, again, having someone like read your hormones from a professional level, or if you go off birth control and then don't start cycling again. You can get some tests done, like maybe getting a DEXA scan done to see what bone health looks like if you're concerned about your risk of stress fractures or injury. But I guess if you're someone that is concerned about it, then I would question, like, why are you concerned about it? Is there something that you like, do you recognize that maybe you aren't eating enough or something from other symptoms that you're having, or maybe other things that you're experiencing, in which case then maybe you should explore both the visit with the doc and look at the nutrition piece. Or if you have a string of injuries, I see that a lot. If you're getting stress fractures or even tendon ligament injuries, you might want to consider looking at the nutrition component and, again, the hormonal component, because it really isn't a straightforward answer, unfortunately, with this kind of thing. I don't know if you have anything else. I know Zoe had some thoughts as well, but again, I wish I had a better, more detailed answer. And I think this is also an area that's not discussed a lot for some reason. So I honestly wish there were more like sports medicine doctors talking about it more, so that women felt more comfortable. There's so many women or those that menstruate that they are on birth control and they are confused as to like what is normal and what is not, and they just want they need some direction. And that I feel like there's just not a lot of, there's even in the sports medicine world, there's just not a lot of docs that are maybe experienced with red S even, and what is normal and what is not for those that menstruate.
Yeah, I think that's so key, like a huge point there that I really wanted to like put to verbally yellow highlighter is like, if you're concerned about this, I think that's a curiosity that's really important to lean into. If you're concerned at all that you're under fueling, let's explore that. Let's explore that with a professional. Let's explore that in a way where you feel supported to, approach from a holistic perspective, maybe with a nutritionist, maybe a mental health professional, to really aid you in your fueling journey. I just wanted to like hop in here as like the proud and like just absolutely stoked owner of a hormonal IUD. I actually view that as a piece of training equipment for myself. I think that it's a really transformative thing for an athlete to be connected with the birth control that works for them, for their life, for their overall context. And again, just like I really hope that everyone has a healthcare ally, and if not, like let your coach help help maybe connect you with a resource or help empower you to like know what kinds of questions to ask. And just like overall, everyone on this team and everyone on planet Earth deserves a healthcare professional that is really going to be attentive to the fact that like for me, I got a hormonal IUD because I was working as a backpacking guide. I didn't want to take certain things into the backcountry with me. I didn't want to get a period, and I didn't, and that was fine. It makes sense for my health context, my goals, and my background. And again, like I just think that being able to approach birth control from a more holistic and like really, really open perspective, and like we have actually, I'll link to it maybe we can put it in the show notes and I can put it on the Facebook group as well, but we ran an endurance athlete's guide to hormonal contraceptives on Trail Runner. And it was really interesting to edit and read, because a lot of times these things just like don't get talked about. And it's not like you need to include your coach in these conversations, but I think that like, again, like when you're advocating for yourself and when you're navigating your own birth control journey, that is like your athletic self is a piece of yourself that you can bring to the table, because it was for me, like it did inform the decision in a way that to me felt really empowering and really inclusive of my whole self. I think that like, and another thing is like being able to talk with your healthcare professional about like, if you have a red S or an eating disorder history, like those are important parts of yourself to bring into that conversation too. Like all your risk factors, all your goals, objectives, just all of that is really important when you're navigating birth control and family planning decisions. And I think that like, if you need someone to like hype you up before you go into that conversation with your healthcare provider, we're here to do that. We're here to empower you to just like be, an advocate for yourself on that journey. But I also just want to say that like, when you do find the thing that works for you, man, is it just the freaking greatest.
I want to jump in because I feel like both you and Kylie alluded to this. And so I'm just going to put it on the table for everybody who's listening. I feel like if you are an athlete who is using your period as a way of determining whether or not you have REDS or not, that's not healthy. I would say that you're over-indexing on one kind of biological cycle that's occurring, and you need to be zooming out and looking at things more holistically. Because I would say in this kind of situation, and in my experience as a coach, that athlete most likely is under fueling, and like if they do get their periods, like great, I'm getting away with things and this is perfect, I can ride this line. And then if I, my cycle doesn't come around as it normally would, okay, that'd be a red flag. And now I need to, and I don't want to get on a hormonal IUD, because then I won't have this like signal that my body's giving me that tells me like I'm fueling correctly. And as athletes, like we need to be attuned to many different signals, not just one signal.
Yeah. And athletes all at every part of the gender spectrum can experience RED-S as well. We don't want to over-index on like one biological signal in the noise. Athletes who don't menstruate can definitely experience RED-S. Again, just like and I think that's been a huge learning curve for me as a coach, is seeing how it presents for athletes at every section of the gender spectrum, right?
Yeah,
like
totally.
Male identifying athletes might experience it in one way, like trans and non-binary athletes might experience RED-S and like eating disorder pressures in a totally different way, female identifying athletes in an additional way. So I think it's just really important to like have a really nuanced conversation about how different folks, like what they should be paying attention to in their own bodies. And yeah, again, I think actually Kylie's Instagram is one of my favorite sources. I think she had a really deep post an in-depth post this week on a lot of the different signs and symptoms that you can look for.
And I think it is important to, check out information like that. Like certainly, Kylie may not be an expert on all types of birth controls, but she definitely treats people who have had RED-S and who do, and eating disorders. And it's vital as athletes, and like to really, and I'm trying to use the right words here because this is maybe a scary subject to talk about, because I know that it brings up a lot of different emotion for athletes. And I don't want to sound like I'm not empathetic.
Safe space, break.
But it's important that we take ownership over all of those different signals that our body gives us. If we're overly reliant on just one thing, it's a problem.
Yeah.
Yeah, I will say too that I'm all for the non-hormonal IUD. I personally have a non-hormonal IUD, but I think for me, like, and it's going to be different for different athletes. But it's okay to have a non-hormonal IUD as well. Like, you just have to pay a little bit closer attention sometimes to what signals your body is giving you. So regardless of what kind of birth control you're using, like, just being aware and paying very close attention, I think is really important.
And Zoe had said, you don't need to include your coach in decisions about your contraception, which is totally true. But if you could let us know if you all of a sudden start taking hormones, if you're changing what hormones you are taking, and please let us know if you're missing periods. Those things will impact your training. We're gonna have conversations with you about those things. It's just helpful for us to know. So if all of a sudden your runs are really hard and you're losing sight of the fact that you just started a medication 7 to 10 days ago, we can say, hey, this makes sense, right? You're on a new hormone. Maybe your body is adjusting to this. So please, you don't have to tell us why or any of that, but it is helpful to let us know if you're on a new medication.
Yeah.
100%. Thank you, Sarah. That was, so important. All right, let's talk about sedentary lifestyle versus regularly walking the dog and commuting by bike. Different topic. What is
and now for something completely different.
How is that transition, everybody? What is the
seamless, like an IUD insertion?
What is the impact of daily low-level activity on training? I really think this is actually an awesome question, because I have so many athletes who confuse walking the dog with training and like light hikes with training. And maybe we can shed some light on this. Drew, haven't heard from you yet today, but really value your opinion. So why don't you start us off on this one?
Yeah, for sure. So it's from years of coaching, what you see is that a lot of athletes who have sedentary jobs, we'll say, maybe sitting at a desk all day, or maybe people who are like commuting via car, just like they're sitting for long periods of time. In my experience, it's kind of a little bit of a disadvantage when it comes to injury prevention. Sitting for long periods of time, obviously your muscles, tendons, everything's getting a little tighter, so that when you are up and at them, it's just, in my opinion, and really it's a science there too, like the tighter you are, the higher risk you are for just like it could be pulling something or some sort of tendonitis or whatever the issue is that impacts your training in a negative way. The question is about, I guess, impact of daily low level of activity on training. Awesome. I love people being active. I think that the stand-up desks are really popular, like sitting on like a Bosu ball or or whatever. In my house, like I move my laptop around from like different rooms just to like be active and be at different levels. So like my hamstrings that are kind of known for being a little way too tight have a little bit of I guess help there. But the idea is that you're being active and moving throughout the day is helpful. They asked, or TJ, you said something about like walking dogs or commuting on a bike and that kind of stuff. Obviously that's not working out. That has nothing to do with your day. We shouldn't necessarily be logging that kind of stuff. I wouldn't suggest, but being active and doing things throughout the day, definitely helpful in my mind.
Yeah, absolutely. I completely agree, Drew, about what you said. Like we have a lot of athletes who work desk jobs, and I often ask those athletes to try to oscillate between sitting and standing, because when you sit all day, your muscles shorten and your tendons shorten, and so you get tighter, and then you need a longer warm up to get warmed up. Sometimes it can be challenging. And we see this often like with like hip, hamstring, IT band issues, kind of connected to like sitting slouched over with bad posture. So like, there's nothing wrong with a sedentary lifestyle, as like a lot of the coaches mentioned in the comments here in our spreadsheet.
So if you're on this call, like at all, your overall lifestyle is not sedentary.
Well, we were
Like-
going to get to that.
Okay. I just had to flag that, like, if you're being coached, like, you're already in like the 1% of like Americans, or I'm going to say Americans. Shout out to people overseas who live super healthy, walk to the baguette store everyday lifestyles.
Yeah, I mean, let's just unpack that for a second. Like, I feel like this is an important question because athletes often, like I said, are over indexing on like their bike commutes and walking the dog, and like they want to log that as training, and like that you hear these things like time on feet counts. And so like, walking around the block is training. And like, in my experience, that is not training. Training has a purpose. There's a goal for the work that you're doing. And you're doing a specific activity to elicit a specific adaptation or response. Walking the dog is great for clearing your mind, being mindful, resetting after a long day of work. Like,
and it could be actually really good
Great
for
for
recovery,
stretching the
getting a
legs.
little bit of
Sure.
like circulation. Like one of the reasons that the only reason that Normatec boots have any sort of measurable impact at all is because they increase circulation. Walking also does that exact same thing and is a bit cheaper than Normatec boots. I think for me, something to look, or not for me, generally a framework that I think can be helpful is like, is this adding productive, like, is this strain productive and intentional? If you are walking the dog in such a way that it strains you, like A, come walk my dog, B, like that's not productive strain. Like that is not going to help you run a marathon or, finish hard rock any faster.
it might be great for your upper body strength.
Right. Yeah. If you're walking our dog, you're getting an incredible like lat exercise. Your obliques are going to be, one side of your obliques is going to be just
Not balanced.
yeah, not balanced. Half of you will look amazing on the beach. But I think like if it is strain that is not productive, I think like some things like, yeah, if you're commuting to work on a bike and it's like a really long way, like maybe we don't do that on your rest day. Maybe you drive in or like take the bus one day a week. Like I think that really trying to, and like, but maybe, if you're just biking like a mile and you're like pedaling 3 times, like that isn't strain and it might be productive. But if it's not productive and it is strain, I think that that's really important to assess. And I think that like a thing that I just want, like a seed I want to plant is like, some people I've noticed can have a really challenging relationship with movement. Like I've had athletes who want to get like under the desk treadmills to try to do 3 miles at work. Like we don't need to do that. Like unless you have a medical professional telling you need to do that, I think it's actually more helpful to polarize your day and not always be in that gray zone of like, I need to be moving because like I can't sit still, or because like I feel that I need to burn calories in a way that's like maybe not all that healthy. I think that those are things worth paying attention to. If you feel that you must always be in movement, if you're someone who struggles to embrace rest days and struggles to embrace periods of rest and couch love, I think that that's worth investigating with your coach, maybe a mental health professional. That's like 1% of folks that like are really in that struggle to the extent I think it's worth bringing up. But I just wanted to flag that if you're someone who like literally can't handle the thought of a rest day without doing like a 7-mile walk, like without some sort of strain, or even like if you feel that your movement is entirely catered to addressing a mental and emotional need, that to me is like, we should talk.
Yeah, but I feel like that is fairly common. I think I have one person like that per every 20 or 25 athletes that I coach. So there's a fair number of those people just on my roster in general.
If you just like have 50 athletes in a room, that's a pretty self-selected group of people. And there's going to be people who use movement as their primary way of self-soothing.
Totally. And that's okay. I mean, movement is correlated, and the research does suggest that that dopamine response and the endorphins that are created through movement help make us feel better. And so we're definitely not telling people like, don't walk your dog or don't commute by bike if it makes you feel good. But we're also saying like, let's not over index on the training. Let's compartmentalize. The training is the training. The training is what is prescribed to you. It has a very specific purpose. And the other things that you do might have a great purpose as well. It might help you recover, et cetera. But we don't have to always be in a training mindset all the time. And in fact, if you are, and we see this with athletes I see this with athletes on my roster who log when they rest, just to say they rested, just to say they did yoga. Hate that as a coach. Don't log on your rest day. I want you to take a break from training on your rest day, because I relate and know so many of my athletes so well. And we are always focused on training and how to optimize and how to eke out a few extra percentages, that we need to get out of the training mindset from time to time. When you're walking your dog, like Zoe said, great opportunity, polarize, compartmentalize, great opportunity to not switch into your training mindset. Rest day, great opportunity to not switch into your training mindset and get that mental and emotional break. You know, we can engage in the process all the time, but it's really important we don't over-index on one part of our identity. Now, an important part of my identity is my inner couch potato, and like, we have good notes on this in this log. Like, if you are one of those people who likes to just rest and reset and feels like you can be challenged with your mental and emotional bandwidth, I am one of those people. And, you know, my athletes who work with me will know that. And from time to time, I'll email my team and be like, hey, I'm taking an extra day off this week. I need a mental reset so I can show up for you guys in a really authentic and purposeful way. And like, that's how I operate. And many people are like that too. And so like, if you are one of those people who feel sedentary by like lying on the couch, like, oh, let's not like put a term on, let's not label it like that. Let's think of that as important recovery as well.
EJ,
I
can
think
I
it's
offer,
just my thoughts, but
can I offer,
love.
I was just gonna,
Yeah.
I wanted to add something from an alternative perspective for like the nutrition piece, because we get a lot of people that they don't think that movement counts towards like them being able to eat, or like if they take their dog for a walk, or if they go to yoga or something, they don't think that they're doing something hard enough that warrants them nutrition. And so on the other end of the spectrum, it's not related to training. Obviously, I totally agree with what you guys are saying for that. Like, we don't need to log off those things. But with the nutrition side of things, if you're not looking at those activities as like expending energy and replacing that, then it could actually impact your training in that sense, because you might end up like under fueling overall, and then it makes you more tired. So we see it a lot, and we have to like retrain a lot of our clients to like think about those things as actually like requiring more energy intake.
I think that is such an important point. It reminds me that now a lot, like in my distant past, I used to work in restaurants, and I would work every night after training. And I had a situation where I started to feel like I was not recovering well, and I couldn't figure it out. And then one night I turned my Garmin watch on at work, and I tracked how much mileage I was putting in over an 8-hour shift as a server. And I walked nearly 6 miles that night at work, and was like blown away by what that meant. Like, I was
You're
just like
doing a 10K
holy
every day at
crap.
work.
Yeah. And it's just, and like, you know, to be honest, like, our family meal before work wasn't that great nutrition wise. And like a bowl of rice. It's just like, I was like, man, I am like completely under fueling, and no wonder I feel like crap. I'm doing like the equivalent of an entire, like another training session. And even though it's not training, it is significant, and it does require. And so like, I started to eat another meal after work, even though it was 11:30 at night. And then, I would feel so much better on my run in the morning. So I just think that, Kylie, that is such an important note. Like, I have athletes who just love being active and like they love being out with their dogs. And so, they do like zone 1, zone 0, like hiking in the afternoon with their dogs and stuff. And perhaps they don't really realize that might up their caloric needs, that might ask them to eat more protein to help improve recovery and all of these things. And so, recovery for everybody looks really different. And I think like Steve Magnus has like really great posts on Instagram about this, where it's like, yeah, being on the couch can be great recovery, but so can hanging out with friends, and, so can be a walk around the block, and, so is like engaging in meaningful work. And like, we have all of these different things that can contribute to recovery. But if we're not aware of what they are, like if your thing is doing like an extra 60-minute 3-mile hike with your dogs every afternoon, that might have other implications that we should be aware of, as Kylie mentioned. So yeah, love that point. Yeah.
And it just like depends on what your baseline is, what your ability to recover is, and like fundamentally is this strain on my body? Because like there's also been times where like recovering from like a big effort on my part, where like the chill like dog hike that would like have been nothing during training, my body's like, oh, we're straining. So like that baseline, like all of this can shift. I think it's just important to tap into like, is this productive? Is this intentional? Is this strain?
Totally. And again, like we don't have to make those dog walks. I would encourage people
to come walk our dog.
Yeah. Don't make the dog walk. Don't make the commute on the bike training related, but just be aware that, if you are adding significant exercise and it might be very low level, your caloric needs might go up and things like that. And so if you don't take in more fuel, that could negatively impact the training that you do. All right, let's talk about the best tools and hacks for estimating the grade of a hill. I bet you we all have the same opinion.
Unanimous coach agreement.
Drew, what's our unanimous decision on this?
It's Strava. And honestly, even if you are an athlete that doesn't have Strava, that's fine. All the coaches do. If you're ever curious, I had an athlete this week that was trying to do hill repeats and started on one hill and was like, I've been doing this for the last few weeks. It's feeling a little easier. Maybe I'm getting stronger, whatever the case. So I'm going to go to this other hill across town. And he did one up and he was like, oh shit, like this is too much. And then we went back later. He's like, how do I know the grade? So I was like, let me look for it. He doesn't have Strava. I looked and the second hill he was trying to do repeats was like 15%. I was like, dude, stay away from that. We don't do hill repeats on that. Like go back to your other hill that turned out to be like between 7 and 8%. I'm like, that's perfect. Keep up with that hill. So Strava is key. If you don't have it, ask your coach.
Yeah. And you don't need to Everest on your hill repeats.
15% grade. That's our steep hill category for very specific.
It's like basically
training.
A box jump at that point.
Oh my God.
Don't do it.
There are
like for
two things that delight me as a coach more than anything. One is when you get to click the button in spreadsheets that says add 1,000 more rows. Oh, nothing feels better. Second thing is when an athlete outgrows their repeat hill. They're like, man, this used to be my 1-minute hill and I'm not, I'm too fast now. I love it when we outgrow hills. That's just like, oh, as a coach, live for that.
I know. I see Tom Ralph on the call. He's training.
That man's gonna outgrow.
He's training for the Hard Rock 100, and I'm guessing he's gonna be.
There are hill repeats in his future.
That's super.
Spoiler alert, Tom, you will be doing some hills.
Oh, Drew, I'm so sorry. I didn't see your comment from earlier.
No, it's okay. You put a great bow on the end of that question. Don't worry about it.
Got it. Thank you. One more thing about hills. Doesn't have to be the perfect grade. 5 is fine. 9 is fine. 6.5 is fine. I encourage athletes to have a few different hill options if they can. And like things like parking garages and like on and off ramps for, highways, as boring as that sounds, very effective, usually around 4 to 6% grade in my experience. So kind of like that perfect steepness. The key is if we go too steep, the hills, they start to feel more like a bounding exercise where we're really trying to like muscle our way up. And we want these things to still feel smooth and primarily fast. And so that's why we don't want to get too much more above that 8% grade. That resistance is just a little too much to develop the speed. We're end up working on other things like developing strength and power, like more keyed up for strength and power rather than trying to find that like bridge between fast and using the glutes and creating strength and power. Hope that makes sense to everybody.
If it feels like a strength workout, that's not what we're doing. That's a different thing. Too deep.
All right, well, we're getting kind of close on time. Let's finish this up with just a fun question here.
Ooh.
For the coaches, if you could run anywhere in the world, where would you go? Kristen, you want to start us off?
I really liked New Zealand. Would definitely go back there.
I've never run there. What's it all about?
It's like, I don't know, like I think the Pacific Northwest is very like Fern Gully-esque, but New Zealand is that times 1,000.
Hella fern.
Yeah, it's just very
Sounds
lush, like
amazing.
tropical, very green with like weird birds and really cool plants.
Nice. Awesome. Kylie.
Mine's hard to pick. Nepal is definitely, I've been to Nepal. It's like my favorite place ever, but I also want to go to Patagonia and New Zealand. So there's a lot of places I want to run.
Awesome. I feel like a lot of athletes can relate to that. I know that I can. This question is just tough, so I'm going to delay my answer here. Drew, where would you run if you could run anywhere?
Well, I like to vacation to Puerto Vallarta. And so it used to be there because I've never gotten to run a race there until Zoe did. Now I'm like, I'm not going there to run anymore. I'm going there to like drink and get sunburned. And then I am not afraid of hills. I feel like people are trying to kill me when we're running up mountains. Like they're really trying to like never see me again. So I probably avoid anything mountainous. And so I just had an athlete run the Queenstown Marathon in New Zealand, and not to harp on it like the other coaches did, but the pictures that she took when she was there are just so amazing to be like, it's like tropical, but like not, the colors are surreal. Like, that if you see pictures on Instagram, which I know it's fake, right? But like New Zealand's real, like the pictures of the color and the water and the jungle and like everything is just incredible. It doesn't seem real.
Yeah, I will say too, if you do go to New Zealand, hit up the South Island because it's like the Alps meet the ocean and it will blow your mind. It's never seen anything like it.
No Alps for me. We should go together. We'll let you guys run the Alps and I'll be close to the ocean, keeping a beachfront spot ready for you.
That's perfect. If you need route recommendations, let me know.
These feet sticking to the sand in that recliner chair. Zoe.
I want to run in Cinque Terre. Like I used to live in Italy and I love the coast. But like Cinque Terre is like 5 little villages that you can link up with a trail. So I want to do that over the course of like 3 days and then just ball out on pizza and pasta. For me, it's like a very holistic, like how much can I run? How many carbs can I put in myself?
You definitely, that was definitely my answer. A coastal Italian running vacation would be great for my mental health and well-being. But
eating pot, like that was the thing I loved about Mexico, was like that is the most time I've spent like inert next to water. Like for a running vacation, we really did spectacularly little running just because the running wasn't that great, but the poolside margarita action was incredible.
We could have brought up the run the run balance a little bit more.
I just didn't enjoy the running there.
It could have been better. Yeah. Well, since you're going to Italy, I'm gonna go to Marin Headlands and
Ooh.
run. I really love those coastal trails, and that's probably my favorite place
Yeah.
to run in North America.
Yeah. Man, so much. This planet has the sickest running I've ever seen.
I know. Gosh,
You got to
should
take care of
see
it.
All right. Well, thanks everybody. I believe next week is our last call of the year. We will be taking a 3-week hiatus to collect some questions and topics and just form up everything for 2023. And yeah, get some much needed downtime. Doing these calls every week is a joy for us, but it's also a lot of work. So we're looking forward to a little bit of a break. So, you know, that we can come back in 2023 and really rock it. If you've got like a question or something that we haven't touched on this year that you want us to touch on next week, we're going to kind of do a similar format as this week. And so, yeah, I invite you to send us an email, chime in on Facebook. Yeah. Well, thanks everybody. Yeah, it was a great talk. I really enjoyed it. Have a good weekend. Bye.